First City Focus is supported in part by Duke Energy, powering the lives of its customers and communities. Online at duke-energy.com. Andy Ellerman of First City Wealth, serving Vincennes and surrounding communities to help with investing and planning for your future before and during retirement years. First City Wealth online at firstcitywealth.com. Colonial Assisted Living. Colonial is an assisted living residence promoting independence and dignity for each resident while providing the necessary assistance for daily living. Colonial Assisted Living, 1622 South Hart Street Road in Vincennes, 812-895-1504. And by donations contributed by Vincennes PBS viewers like you. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to First City Focus. I'm your host, Nicole Carey. On this episode, we're taking a look at our latest History Vault episode, exploring the legacy of Hooper Field in the Knox County city of Bicknell. We'll learn how the St. Louis Cardinals were beat out by the Bicknell Braves on that field in 1921. The local DAR chapter is recognizing a historic figure of our community. Find out why Francis Vigo is being honored today. Do you know the local legends involving the infamous Cannonball Bridge? We'll tell the tales of the structure, which connects Knox County to Lawrence County, Illinois. When it comes to packing a healthy lunch, especially for your kiddos or grandkids, it can be quite the challenge. Well, we'll aim to make it an easier feat in our inaugural Learning Local segment. And 'tis the time of year for raking leaves, or is it? We'll explore the benefits of leaving those leaves be, or when clearing them out is necessary, in growing smarter. We have a packed episode for you, so sit back, relax, and enjoy First City Focus right now. I hope you're ready to take in our second episode of History Vault. This episode premiered earlier online on our Vincennes PBS YouTube channel, centering around a piece of land in Bicknell that for decades has been the heart and soul of baseball and football in the city. Hooper Field has seen a lot of physical activity over more than 100 years, including a visit from the St. Louis Cardinals, who left the town in defeat.
He and John Wooden were in school together at the same time and happened to be fraternity brothers.
So Hooper Field continues to accent what the history of Bicknell is. It's something that almost everyone in the community shares, and it's something that we use to highlight the romantic nature, you might say, of small town. Either it's local stories about folks who played there, or some memory they have, or all of our Hall of Famers that have coached and played there. It is one of the things that we put in our crown as being an accent and a highlight of Bicknell.
Hooper Field came into existence back in 1917, thanks to a generous donation made by its namesake, Herman Hooper, in the early 1900s. A stockholder in J.C. Penney, Hooper took pride in investing in civic projects within Bicknell's community. Hooper Field was home to the Bicknell High School Bulldogs for almost 50 years, spanning from 1917 to 1962, then continued to serve as home for the consolidated North Knox Warriors until 1974. For decades, the site housed both football and baseball, including Little League. Dave Hunter and Jack Lynn both grew up in Bicknell and went on to play major roles within local athletics. Fond memories of their time playing at Hooper Field run deep for the two.
Here in Bicknell, it was sponsored by the churches. You had to be a member of the church and attend there. And so there was the Methodist Church, the Catholic Church, Christian, Baptist, all had a team, Salvation Army, and the kids were divided out accordingly.
But yeah, the fence wasn't here. And I remember and still today how right field goes up.
Yes. Yeah.
You're actually, if you're playing right field, you're looking down at the plate. You know, and I remember I wasn't really a very good player, but the last year I played, my best hit ever was against Max Benson. He was the pitcher for the Baptist team, and there was a thunderstorm coming. We weren't going to be able to play very much longer. I mean, the clouds were rolling in, and I hit a pitch, all probably beyond the outfield fence. You know, that was the biggest thrill of my career, is getting to hit off Max Benson, because he and I were neighbors.
It was a great experience growing up as a kid. We had a great time, great camaraderie with the guys, and it was just a good time growing up.
While Little League carries many memories for the local community, back in the 1920s, the men's semi-pro team, the Bicknell Braves, called Hooper Field home. And thanks to a paid fundraiser, their crowning moment came in 1921. As Mayor Thomas Estabrook will tell you, the hometown men beat out the one and only St. Louis Cardinals.
In September of that year, the Cardinals came to Bicknell by train and played on Hooper Field against the Bicknell Braves in an exhibition game of just local Bicknell guys who played baseball. And in a win, in the first exhibition loss for the Cardinals in 2 years, the Bicknell Braves beat the St. Louis Cardinals by a score of 9-6. And it's chronicled in the Bicknell Daily News in 1921, where it actually is covered over several different days, how the game went and who the players were and what the crowd was like, and how much of just an outstanding event that it was. And so after the Cardinals took their loss, they returned to St. Louis by train. They got on the train at the train station in downtown and returned to St. Louis and feasted on chicken prepared by the First Baptist Church women as, I guess, as a parting gift, you might say.
While that monumental day will always stand out for the community, when it comes to high school football, Hooper Field witnessed many great games during that same time period.
Vincennes and Bicknell had a long football history, and in the early years, in the 20s, Bicknell dominated Vincennes. If you look on the display over here with the Heritage Circle, it has some scores of games, then Vincennes would be beaten by Bicknell by pretty good scores. But by the 30s, it began to flip, and by the 40s, then it became the other way. And I think the last game they played, Vincennes and Bicknell, was probably 1955 or 56, and I can't remember if it was on this field or was at Inman Field in Vincennes. Yeah. But by then it became one-sided, and there was no reason to continue the rivalry.
Right. I'm not old enough to have ever seen it, but I have seen pictures of the grandstand. And my dad would relate stories of what happened here on the field when they had great teams and that, and had a real history. A lot of great players played on this field and coached here. The boards over here have 12 people that are in the Indiana Hall of Fame, Football Coaches Hall of Fame, Illinois, one New York, one's from Georgia. We're in the Hall of Fames and that, so all of them either played or coached on this field.
Fast forward to the early 60s. Both Hunter and Lynn remember the period of consolidation of the smaller area schools, Bicknell, Bruceville, Freelandville, Edwardsport, Oaktown, and Sanborn, into North Knox High School for the 1963-64 school year. And while the process of consolidation was riddled with politics and mixed feelings, Lynn says it didn't take long for the students to come together, especially when it came to athletics.
You know, when the kids all came together, they were friends. It didn't take but just a few days, and
correct,
you were buddies with the same guys you were playing in junior high against.
Right. Rich Jones was from Bruceville. He was the basketball coach.
Right.
And our great friend, our late great friend, I have to mention him here, Don Skinner, became guidance director, and he was the principal of Bicknell High School. He always said that if Bicknell had not had football, North Knox probably would not have had it, because obviously there were no football players from the other schools.
My freshman year of high school was the very first year of North Knox. We were the first four-year graduating class of North Knox, and so I was fortunate enough to be able to play football on this field. I ran track. It was an old cinder track that went around here. It wasn't quite 400 meters. It was a little short, but that defined the field. Obviously, you could see the old imprint. If you looked at an aerial view, you could kind of pick out where the track was at. The field house up here, the gray building, the dressing room, is unique in the fact that it was funded by a exhibition match with Joe Louis when he was world champion down at the old Bicknell gym down here. And that was he fought 4 rounds of exhibition boxing, and that was what they used to fund this building right up here. And it stood the rest of the time, still is used by the city today. And if you go in and look at the walls, there's some painting, spray painting on the walls in there from the last game that was played on this field, from when they beat Westfield to go to the state championship.
Well, I broadcast the last game, the Westfield North Knox game. Don and I did it.
Yes.
I would really love for there to be another football game played by our North Knox Warriors on this field. And I don't know how we do it, but we would try to figure it out. And so I think that would be kind of an accent to that. And oddly enough, 2024 is the 50th anniversary of that team and of that championship game. So I think for there to be some way where we could recreate some of that effect, I think would be just great for the community. And we get to tell that story again.
And we just cannot leave Hooper Field until we tell you another great story that intertwines a native Bicknell athlete and the great John Wooden.
There's a gentleman that's on the World War II plaque down here that died, Fred Stalkup. He went by Runt Stalkup. He was kind of a short guy. Played football here, was a very good football player. Went to Purdue and played football for Purdue. Well, as the story transpired, he and John Wooden were in school together at the same time and happened to be fraternity brothers. Well, John Wooden was called up in World War II and was to go on a ship and be transferred out, but he got an appendix attack and had to have his appendix removed, and Fred Stalkup took his place. Well, subsequently the ship was bombed and sunk, and Fred Stalkup died. And so my dad heard John Wooden on TV relate part of that story, and so he wrote him a letter. And my dad just typed it on an old manual typewriter and sent it to John Wooden, UCLA. And about 3 months later, he got the letter back, and John Wooden had handwritten on the bottom, yes, Fred Stalkup was a fraternity brother of mine. He played for Purdue football, and he took my place. Had I been there, I would have probably been the one that died. And so that was Fred Runt Stalkup, and played for the Bicknell Bulldogs and had a great career.
I'd never heard that story before. That's
Yeah.
a great story.
While the history of Hooper Field has been passed down through the generations, Estabrook and the community have now solidified its memories with great honor in the new Heritage Circle, which was dedicated earlier this year.
Heritage Circle is something that we are very, very proud of. It has 2 pieces, the military remembrance piece and of course the community heritage Hooper Field piece. And it's something that allows us not only currently to think about our heritage and what the community has been, but it's something for future generations who won't have lived a lot of these events that we're talking about. It's something that allows us to put forth an understanding as to where we came from as a community, what the foundations of the community are. Bicknell is not just any other small town. We have a great history, and we can make that happen again. And the only way that we can do that is to tell those stories and to remind people what the community is and what we hope for it to be.
With photojournalist Dave Novak, I'm Nicole Carey. Thanks for watching History Vault. If you like our series History Vault, make sure you're subscribing to our Vincennes PBS YouTube channel. Well, if you're familiar with the Vincennes area, no doubt you've heard of Francis Vigo, a fur trader in the 1770s. The local chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution are now paying tribute to their chapter's namesake. As News Director Dave Foster explains, a new grave marker is bringing more recognition and awareness to the feats Vigo made possible.
Overlooking the city from his perch along the Wabash River, the statue of Francis Vigo seems ever watchful of Vincennes and the George Rogers Clark Memorial. His legacy drew a crowd to his gravesite just blocks away. Vigo was a pivotal figure in the American Revolution. His contributions to the war effort went far beyond what many realize. To recognize his role, the state and local chapters of the Daughters and Sons of the American Revolution came together to present a new historical marker to ensure that his legacy as an American patriot endures.
Most people, when we acknowledge a patriot for the American Revolution, it's done by somebody joining the National Society and proving their lineage and proving that he was. Well, Francis Vigo had no children. Francis Vigo did not lead any troops during the American Revolution. And so what I had to do to have him officially recognized as a National Society Daughters of the American Revolution patriot, I had to establish his birth, his death, and his service. The death was easy because he was in our local newspaper when he passed. The most difficult time I had to prove his birth, and I found people had him born anywhere from 1740 to 1749. We know that he was born in Moldovi, Sardinia, in northern Italy. And I found a book that contained an interpretation of the Latin birth certificate or baptism record for Francis Vigo. And so that took me quite a time to find it. And then it was easy to find. I used the writings of George Rogers Clark and some of the people in his unit to prove the service of Francis Vigo. But it took a lot of digging, and I have to thank the George Rogers Clark National Historic Park because they were instrumental in helping me find some of my information.
So what did Francis Vigo do to advance the American cause and support George Rogers Clark? As a prosperous fur trader, Vigo accumulated a significant fortune. In 1778, he contributed nearly $12,000 to Clark's militia, a sum valued at about $275,000 today. In the fall of 1778, Francis Vigo was traveling back to Vincennes, unaware that the British had recaptured Fort Sackville. Along the way, he was captured by Native Americans and taken to the fort, where British forces held him prisoner for several weeks. During his time in captivity, Vigo quietly gathered intelligence, observing everything he could. And when he was finally released, he had to leave behind his horse and trade goods and was forced to promise that he would return to his home in St. Louis without taking any action that would harm the British cause. However, once he reached St. Louis, Vigo headed straight to Kaskaskia instead, where he met with George Rogers Clark. And there he shared the critical information he had gathered. British reinforcements were expected to arrive by spring, and knowing that they couldn't afford to wait, Clark made the difficult decision to lead his men on a treacherous winter march through swamps and rivers. And thanks to Vigo's warning, Clark and his men reached Fort Sackville and captured it. And the rest, as they say, is history. A history that everyone here believes needs to be remembered and shared repeatedly.
It helps perpetuate the memory of those that came before us and sacrificed their lives, fortunes, and property for the country that we enjoy today.
Francis Vigo is one of those people from the community who not only gave of his time and talent, but he gave thousands of dollars to the American cause and helped support George Rogers Clark in winning the West for the American Revolution.
Just an awesome individual, Francis Vigo, and we would have never won this war without his effort. So we're here to celebrate his achievements in his life.
As the nation approaches the 250th anniversary of independence in 2026, commemorations like the unveiling of this new grave marker remind us of the people and stories that shaped our country's beginning. With each retelling, Francis Vigo's legacy is woven deeper into the fabric of American history, a patriot whose contributions continue to inspire generations. For First City Focus, I'm Dave Foster.
You can learn more about Francis Vigo and the local DAR chapter by visiting our website, vincennes.pbs.org. If you travel south of Vincennes and want to venture on over to Illinois, you'll more than likely find yourself traveling over a famous one-lane bridge, infamous in our area at least. The Cannonball Bridge has had many names or nicknames over the years. Our newest Vincennes PBS team member, Tessa Haig, explains the local lore behind this structure.
Did you know that Indiana is home to several haunted bridges? One of the spookiest is right here in Vincennes. Known by many names, it's commonly called the Cannonball Bridge. Construction began in 1897, and after years of work, the bridge finally opened as a railroad crossing in 1924. Over time, it fell into disrepair and eventually became a single-lane toll bridge in 1970. Spanning over 1,400 feet, it connects Indiana and Illinois. Just recently, it received a facelift thanks to renovations by Illinois. But what gives this bridge its haunted reputation? The stories are numerous and vary depending on who you ask, but most center around a ghostly figure known as the Purple Head. Legend has it that the Purple Head belongs to a Native American from the Sharman clan who tragically lost his life there and never received a proper burial. Locals say that if you visit the bridge at midnight and park in the center, and then honk 3 times, you might see the Purple Head appear in your rear view mirror, begging for a proper farewell. But that's not the only story tied to this infamous spot. Some say a man once ventured out to the bridge on a rainy night with the intention of hanging himself. In a gruesome twist of fate, his body was separated from his head, which is why, on dark, stormy nights, some claim to see a floating purple head slowly drifting towards them. Are these just old legends, or is there something truly supernatural at work? Does the Purple Head really haunt this bridge, or is it simply a figment of our imaginations? For decades, the tales of Cannonball Bridge have been passed down, becoming a part of local lore. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the tales surrounding Cannonball Bridge continue to captivate the community. Thanks for watching. With First City Focus, I'm Tessa Haig.
I'm sure many of you have some stories to tell as well about Cannonball Bridge. Head on over to our YouTube channel and leave us a comment on this video, sharing your experience. Well, something that can frighten many is the thought of packing a healthy lunch, especially when it comes to finding something healthy that our kids will eat. Well, let us take away some of the healthy lunch scaries in our next digital series premiere of Learning Local.
Eating healthy can be tricky enough when you're just worried about feeding yourself. But when you start worrying about packing a lunch for your child, how do you know what to pack and what will they actually eat? There's so much to learn, and our community is the perfect place to start. So come along with me because we're learning local. On today's episode of Learning Local, I'm here today with Knox County Community Learning Kitchen Coordinator Tiffany Muranaka. Hi, Tiffany.
Hey, Allison, how are you?
Good. So I know we've been talking a lot about healthy eating, and that's a really popular topic right now. And I'm sure a lot of parents are like, what do I pack my kid for lunch? And you want them to actually eat. So you want them to enjoy the food, but you want it to be, you know, healthy enough to give them energy and be able to power through the rest of their day.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Where do parents even start?
Oh, well, that's a great question, and I'm sure a lot of parents could benefit from just a few simple ideas and tips. So for me, in our house, I have 4 children, and sometimes they take their lunch, sometimes they don't. Just depends, but when they do, these are some of the things, the guidelines and standards that I use in our house. So first of all, I really try to focus on whole food options. When I say whole food, that means the food has been very minimally processed, like fruits and vegetables. They're not processed at all. They're in their whole food state. So these are great options, and get things that you don't have to cut and prepare. Grapes, berries, you just wash them and throw them in their lunchbox and you're good to go. Apples require a little bit more effort unless they like them whole, which is great. But also these little cucumbers are great. My kids love them. Her son said he calls them space pickles, which is so cool.
Oh, there's no such thing as a space pickle.
There is now.
That's where I start. I make sure that my kids at least have some fruits and veggies in that lunchbox. Next, I move on to some kind of high quality protein. Now, what I have here is just some great, little quick jerky bites. Make sure that when you're looking at jerky though, you're reading the ingredients. As with everything, take a look at those ingredients because that's where you will find extra preservatives and things that you do not want in your child's body. So these are clean, good, healthy jerky. And then I have some chicken breasts here that I just got from a rotisserie chicken that I picked up at the store and just sliced up. And then we also have some turkey pepperoni. So those are great protein choices. I also want to include some whole grains. When I say whole grains, these two should be very minimally processed. So I look again at the ingredients. These are some really great kind of more multi-grain crackers, and these are great to make your own Lunchables. I know kids love Lunchables, and that's awesome, but if you can make them from at home, it's a much better option for your child because you get to control what's going in that Lunchable. So some multi-grain crackers, some cheese, and some meat. They will love that, absolutely. I also have some multi-grain wraps that you can use. You can make little peanut butter wraps, whatever you want, and also some multi-grain English muffins. These are really fun and easy to make, little pizza muffins that you can just throw in the lunchbox and go. Also some rice cakes. Rice is a great whole food ingredient as well, and you can put peanut butter on top of those, some bananas or fruits, and it's a really great option as well. Next, I want to throw in a couple of good healthy fats in there. So we have some nuts here, and peanut butter are good options for healthy fats that you can throw into your kids' lunches, as well as Greek yogurt. This is a really great high protein option for dairy, and of course cheese. What kid doesn't like cheese? Unless you're non-dairy. So anyways, these are some of the components that I use in my house to put together some healthy lunch options for my kiddos, and what I would highly recommend. So just make sure that you're using whole food ingredients and that you're reading the labels. If you can't pronounce that ingredient, then you probably shouldn't be putting it in your body or your child's body.
Well, thanks for coming and showing us how to make the perfect lunchbox today, and hopefully people can get some ideas from this.
Oh, I hope so too. Thanks so much for having me. This was so much fun, and yeah, good luck.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Learning Local, and keep tuning in as we keep learning more from local experts.
You can see future episodes of Learning Local on our Vincent's PBS YouTube channel. With fall in full motion, now is the time that many will take to their yards for the sometimes strenuous feat of raking leaves. But is this really necessary? Our very own Julie Sievers explains why it might not be required of you right now in Growing Smarter.
Go outside and rake the leaves.
Do I have to?
Now there's a good question. Do you really? Unfortunately, the answer is not so simple. Yes and no. There's some good news for lazy homeowners and their kids. As long as leaves aren't too thick, they can stay. But before you park yourself on the couch, too many leaves on your lawn going into winter can harm your grass. Thick piles of leaves can smother grass, preventing it from growing once spring finally returns. Leaves also allow mold to grow and invites critter damage from mice and voles. So basically, if you have a lot of leaves, you will need that rake or leaf blower. But wait, there's one more choice for us couch potatoes. Your mower can mulch leaves into small pieces, allowing nutrients and organic material to feed the grass and soil. In fact, maple leaves can help reduce weed growth come spring, and leaves from locust trees can add beneficial nitrogen to the soil. Don't be in a hurry to put away the mower just yet. Be sure to mow over those leaves frequently and make several passes to be sure to chop the leaves into small pieces. Vincent's PBS, helping you grow smarter.
Well, no matter which option we choose, Old Man Winter will be here before we know it. So I guess we all better get to it. And now for our final focus. Halloween seems to take center stage as October winds into November. But for many, there is a 3-day celebration remembering loved ones who are no longer with us. Tessa Haig explores the history and significance of this vibrant holiday, Dia de los Muertos.
Did you know? While Halloween is a popular celebration in many areas, there's another holiday around this time that is rich with history and unique tradition. Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead. Celebrated from October 31st to November 2nd, it's believed that at midnight on October 31st, the boundary between the living and the spirit world dissolves, allowing spirits to cross. Families set up ofrendas, altars decorated with candles, marigolds, photos, and favorite foods of the deceased, either at their home or at the gravesite of the deceased. Marigolds with their bright color and scent are thought to guide spirits back. Festivities include vibrant costumes, face painting of skulls, and sugar skulls representing the sweetness of life. Despite its focus on death, Dia de los Muertos is a joyous time for remembering and reconnecting, celebrating the lives of those who have passed in a colorful and lively way.
And that's all for this edition of First City Focus. Be sure to subscribe to our Vincennes PBS YouTube channel and follow our social media accounts to catch all of our fun digital videos. For everyone here at Vincennes PBS, I'm Nicole Carey. We'll see you again next week.
First City Focus is supported in part by Duke Energy, powering the lives of its customers and communities. Online at duke-energy.com. Andy Ellerman of First City Wealth, serving Vincennes and surrounding communities to help with investing and planning for your future before and during retirement years. First City Wealth online at firstcitywealth.com. Colonial Assisted Living. Colonial is an assisted living residence, promoting independence and dignity for each resident while providing the necessary assistance for daily living. Colonial Assisted Living, 1622 South Hart Street Road in Vincennes, 812-895-1504. And by donations contributed by Vincennes PBS viewers like you. Thank you.